The morning air was crisp and cold as 9-year-old Lily sat on the concrete steps outside Miller's grocery store. Her small hands held a piece of cardboard that she had carefully colored with markers the night before. In big uneven letters it read, "Sweet puppy needs new home. $50. Beside her sat the most beautiful golden retriever mix anyone had ever seen. The dog's fur was a warm honey color, and his brown eyes seemed to understand everything that was happening around him. Lily had wrapped him in her favorite purple blanket, the one with tiny stars that her grandmother had given her 2 Christmas seasons ago. "It's okay, buddy," she whispered to the dog, scratching behind his ears the way he loved. "Someone nice is going to take you home today. Someone who can give you all the treats you want." Buddy's tail wagged slowly, but his head stayed down. Even though he was just a dog, it seemed like he knew something sad was happening. Lily had been sitting there for almost 2 hours. She had watched dozens of people walk past her, carrying their shopping bags and talking on their phones. Some people smiled at her and a few even stopped to pet Buddy, but nobody wanted to take him home. Her mom had told her they might have to do this someday, but Lily never thought it would actually happen. 3 months ago, everything had been different. Her mom had a good job at a big office downtown, and they lived in a nice apartment with a small backyard where Buddy could run and play. But then her mom came home one day with red eyes and a box full of her office things. She sat Lily down and explained that sometimes companies have to let people go, even good workers like her. She promised they would figure everything out, but Lily could see the worry in her mother's eyes. At first, it didn't seem so bad. Her mom found 2 part-time jobs right away, one cleaning offices at night and another helping at a daycare center 3 days a week. But the money wasn't enough to pay for their apartment, food, and everything else they needed. They had to move to a much smaller place across town. It was just one room with a tiny kitchen and pets weren't allowed. The landlord had been very clear about that rule. "We'll find somewhere else soon," her mom had said, "somewhere that allows dogs." But weeks passed and then months, and every place they looked at was either too expensive or didn't allow pets. Her mom worked harder and harder, sometimes not coming home until very late at night. Lily could hear her crying softly sometimes when she thought Lily was asleep. Yesterday, her mom had finally sat her down for another serious talk. "Sweetheart, I know this is hard, but we need to find Buddy a new family. A family that can take good care of him and give him everything he needs." Lily had begged and pleaded. She promised to eat less food so they could buy dog food. She offered to get a job herself, even though she was only 9. She said she would do anything if they could just keep Buddy. But her mom explained that it wasn't fair to keep Buddy in their tiny room all day while she worked. He needed space to run and play. He needed someone who could take him to the vet when he got sick. He needed someone who could afford to feed him good food every day. "If we really love Buddy," her mom had said with tears in her eyes, "we have to do what's best for him even if it breaks our hearts." So here Lily was, trying to be brave for her best friend in the whole world. A woman with a small child walked by, and Lily stood up hopefully. "Excuse me, ma'am. Would you like to meet my dog? He's really friendly and good with kids." The woman glanced over but shook her head quickly. "Sorry, honey. We can't have pets in our apartment." Lily sat back down and sighed. That was the same thing 5 people had told her today. An older man stopped and looked at Buddy for a long moment. "How old is he?" he asked. "He's 2 years old," Lily said, brightening up. "He knows how to sit and stay and shake hands. Watch this." She held up her hand and Buddy immediately lifted his paw to shake it. The man smiled. "He's a good dog, but I'm too old to take care of a young pup like that. He needs someone with more energy." Lily nodded politely, but inside her heart sank a little more. A young couple approached next, and they seemed very interested in Buddy. They asked lots of questions about what he ate and whether he was house-trained and if he barked too much. Lily answered everything honestly, hoping and praying they would want to take him home. But then the woman asked, "Do you have his medical records? Has he had all his shots?" Lily's face fell. She didn't know about any of that stuff. Her mom had always taken care of those things. I don't know," she admitted quietly. "But he's never been sick. He's a really healthy dog." The couple looked at each other and shook their heads. "We really need to see his paperwork," the man said. "Sorry." As they walked away, Lily felt tears starting to form in her eyes. She blinked them back quickly. She had to be strong for Buddy. The morning was getting later and more people were coming and going from the store. Lily tried to make eye contact with everyone who passed by, but most people seemed to be in a hurry. A teenager with earbuds stopped and played with Buddy for a few minutes, but when Lily asked if he wanted to take him home, he laughed and said his parents would never allow it. An elderly woman spent a long time petting Buddy and asking about him, but she finally explained that she already had 3 cats at home and couldn't add a dog to the mix. By the time the church bells across the street chimed 11 o'clock, Lily was starting to feel desperate. Her mom was working at the daycare center today and wouldn't be home until after dinner. Lily had promised she would find Buddy a good home by then. She was starting to wonder if she was asking for too much money. $50 seemed like a lot, but her mom had explained that good dog food and toys and vet visits cost much more than that. They wanted to make sure whoever took Buddy really wanted him and could afford to take care of him properly. Just as Lily was thinking about lowering the price, she saw a man walking out of the grocery store. He was wearing a long, dark coat that looked expensive, and he carried himself like someone important. He had gray hair at his temples and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Something about him seemed different from all the other people who had walked by. Maybe it was the way he moved slowly and seemed to notice things around him instead of hurrying past like everyone else. Lily took a deep breath and stood up. This might be her last chance to find Buddy a good home today. "Excuse me, sir," she said in her politest voice, her heart pounding. "Please buy our puppy. We really need to find him a new family." The man stopped and looked down at her. For a moment, neither of them said anything. The man in the expensive coat stopped walking and looked down at Lily with gentle eyes. There was something about his expression that made her feel like he was really listening, not just being polite like some of the other adults had been. "What's his name?" the man asked, setting down his grocery bags and kneeling beside Buddy. "His name is Buddy," Lily said, her voice getting a little stronger. "He's the best dog in the whole world. He never chews up shoes or makes messes in the house, and he loves kids." As if to prove her point, Buddy's tail started wagging faster when the man reached out to pet him. The dog leaned into the stranger's hand, enjoying the attention. "He certainly seems friendly," the man said with a small smile. "How long have you had him?" "Since he was just a tiny puppy," Lily said, sitting down on the step so she could be at the same level as the man. "We got him from the animal shelter when I was 7. He was so small back then that he could fit in my mom's purse." The man continued petting Buddy, who had now rolled over on his back to get his belly rubbed. "He trusts people easily." "That's a good sign in a dog," Lily nodded eagerly. "He trusts everyone. Sometimes my mom says he's too trusting, but I think that just means he has a good heart." "And you're selling him for $50? The man asked, glancing at her cardboard sign. Lily's face grew serious. "My mom said that's a fair price. She said we don't want to give him away for free because then people might not take good care of him. But we also don't want to ask for too much money because we really need to find him a home today." The man studied her face carefully. "Why do you need to find him a home? Is there something wrong with him?" "Oh no," Lily said quickly. "There's nothing wrong with Buddy. He's perfect. It's just—" She paused, trying to find the right words. "My mom lost her job a few months ago, and we had to move to a new apartment that doesn't allow pets." The man's expression became more serious. "I'm sorry to hear that. That must be really hard for both of you." Lily nodded, feeling tears threatening to come back. "My mom works really hard now. She has 2 jobs, but they don't pay as much as her old job did. She cleans offices at night and helps take care of kids at a daycare center during the day." "What kind of work did she do before?" the man asked gently. "She worked at a big office building downtown. She said she did something with numbers and computers. I don't really understand it, but she was really good at her job. She had been there for a long time." The man was quiet for a moment, still petting Buddy. "Do you remember the name of the company where she worked?" Lily thought for a second. "It had a really long name that I could never remember. But my mom's name is Rebecca Chen, and she always said she worked for Harrison Industries. She used to wear pretty dresses to work every day and carry a briefcase like important people do." Something changed in the man's face when she said that, but Eiley was too focused on Buddy to notice. The dog had fallen asleep on his back with his paws in the air, completely comfortable with this new person. "Harrison Industries," the man repeated quietly. "That is a big company. Yeah, my mom said they had hundreds of people working there. She showed me the building once when we drove by it. It's really tall with lots of windows." Lily's voice got sadder. She said she might never get to work in a nice place like that again. The man was quiet for a long time, just watching Buddy sleep peacefully between them. Lily started to worry that he was going to leave like all the other people had. "Sir?" she said softly. "Are you thinking about taking Buddy home with you? I promise he won't be any trouble. He already knows how to walk on a leash and everything." The man looked up at her and she could see something complicated in his eyes that she didn't understand. "Do you live nearby?" he asked. "Not too far. About 20 minutes on the bus. My mom drops me off here sometimes because she says this is a safe neighborhood with nice people." Lily gestured toward the grocery store. She said if I was going to try to find Buddy a new family, this would be a good place to do it. "Your mother is right. This is a good neighborhood." The man seemed to be thinking very hard about something. "Tell me more about Buddy. What does he like to do?" Lily's face lit up. This was her favorite topic in the whole world. "He loves to play fetch, but he's not very good at bringing the ball back. He just likes to run around with it in his mouth. And he loves to go for walks, especially when there are lots of interesting smells. Oh, and he knows how to shake hands and sit and lie down. My mom taught him all of that. She demonstrated each trick, and Buddy sleepily performed them all perfectly." Even though he was clearly getting comfortable with his new friend. "He also loves to sleep on the bed with me," Lily continued. "He makes me feel safe at night, especially when my mom has to work late. But I know he probably can't sleep on the bed in his new home. My mom always said that not everyone likes dogs on their furniture." The man smiled at that. "Some people don't mind. It depends on the family. Do you have a family?" Lily asked hopefully. "Buddy really loves kids, but he's good with grown-ups too." "I live alone," the man said. "But I have a big house with a yard where a dog could run around and play." Lily's heart jumped with excitement. "Really? That sounds perfect." "Buddy loves to run. At our old apartment, we had a little backyard where he could chase squirrels. He never caught one, but he had so much fun trying." The man reached into his wallet and pulled out some bills. "Lily, I'd like to buy Buddy from you, but I want to give you more than $50. How about 200? Lily's eyes went wide. $200? "But sir, that's way too much. My sign says 50 and my mom taught me to always be fair and honest in business." "Your mother sounds like a very good person," the man said quietly, "but $200 is fair. A dog like Buddy is worth much more than $50. He's clearly been loved and well-trained." Lily looked uncertain. "I don't know if my mom would want me to take that much money. She always says we should never take advantage of people's kindness." The man folded the money and held it out to her. "You're not taking advantage of anything. I'm a businessman, and I know a good deal when I see one. Buddy is worth every penny of this money." Slowly, Lily reached out and took the bills. She had never held so much money in her whole life. "Thank you, sir. This will help my mom so much. Maybe she won't have to work so many hours now." The man stood up and gently picked up Buddy, who woke up but didn't seem worried about being held by his new owner. "What's your name, sir?" Lily asked as she folded up her cardboard sign. "My name is Robert," he said. "And I promise you that Buddy will have a very good home with me." Robert walked slowly toward his car, holding Buddy carefully in his arms. The dog seemed content, occasionally looking back toward where Lily was packing up her cardboard sign and purple blanket. The little girl had given him one last hug before he left, whispering in Buddy's ear that she would miss him but wanted him to be happy. As Robert reached his silver sedan, he gently placed Buddy in the back seat and rolled the windows down slightly so the dog would have fresh air. Buddy immediately curled up on the leather seat, still wrapped in Lily's star-covered blanket that she had insisted he keep. "You'll need something that smells like home," she had said, tucking the blanket around him one more time. Robert got into the driver's seat but didn't start the engine right away. He sat there for a moment, watching Lily through the windshield as she walked toward the bus stop, with her empty cardboard sign under her arm. She looked so small and brave, trying to act like everything was okay even though he could see she had been crying. Rebecca Chen. The name kept echoing in his mind as he finally started the car and pulled out of the parking lot. Harrison Industries, his company. The company he had built from the ground up over the past 15 years. As he drove through the familiar streets of his upscale neighborhood, Robert's mind started racing backward through time, trying to remember the details. 3 months ago, the quarterly meeting with the board of directors, the pressure from investors to cut costs and increase profits. He remembered that meeting clearly now. The company had been doing well, but not well enough for the shareholders who wanted to see bigger returns on their investments. The board had looked at all the numbers and decided that the Easiest way to improve their bottom line was to reduce their workforce by 15%. We need to trim the fat, his chief financial officer had said. Cut the positions that aren't absolutely essential. Robert had struggled with that decision for weeks. He knew that every name on those layoff lists represented a real person with a real family and real bills to pay, but the numbers didn't lie. If they didn't make these cuts, the company might struggle to compete with their rivals. And then even more jobs would be at risk. He had personally reviewed every single file of the 200 employees who were being let go. He wanted to make sure they weren't making any mistakes, weren't losing anyone who was truly irreplaceable. Rebecca Chen. Now he remembered her file perfectly. She had worked in the accounting department for 6 years. Her performance reviews had always been excellent. Her supervisor had even written a note saying she was one of the most reliable employees they had, always willing to work overtime during busy seasons and never missing deadlines. But her position had been marked as non-essential by the department heads. They had decided they could redistribute her work among the remaining staff and save her entire salary, plus benefits. Robert had stared at her file for a long time that day. The photo clipped to her personnel record showed a woman in her early 30s with kind eyes and a professional smile. Under emergency contact, it listed only one name, Lily Chen, daughter. Single mother, he had noted to himself. This decision would be especially hard on her family. But in the end, business was business. He had signed the approval for her termination, along with all the others. It was just a signature on a piece of paper. He never had to look Rebecca Chen in the eye when security escorted her out of the building with her personal belongings in a cardboard box. Now, sitting in his car with her daughter's dog in his back seat, that signature felt like the heaviest thing he had ever written. Robert pulled into his driveway and sat there with the engine off, staring at his large house with its perfectly manicured lawn and expensive landscaping. This house had cost more than most people made in 5 years. His monthly mortgage payment was probably more than Rebecca Chen had made in 2 months at her job. Buddy whined softly from the back seat, and Robert turned around to look at him. The dog's brown eyes seemed to be asking what was wrong, why they weren't getting out of the car yet. "I fired your family," Robert whispered to the dog. "I'm the reason Lily had to sell you today." The weight of that realization settled on his chest like a heavy stone. Every business decision he made affected real people, in ways he never took time to consider. Rebecca Chen wasn't just a name on a spreadsheet or a salary line item to be cut. She was a mother who had to look her 9-year-old daughter in the eye and explain why they couldn't keep their beloved pet anymore. Robert thought about all the times he had congratulated himself on making tough but necessary business decisions. He had always told himself that he was protecting the company, ensuring its future, making sure it stayed competitive. He had never followed up to see what happened to the people whose lives he had changed with the stroke of a pen. He remembered the company's quarterly celebration dinner, held just 1 month after the layoffs. They had rented out an expensive restaurant to celebrate their improved profit margins. Robert had given a speech about how their strategic restructuring had positioned them perfectly for future growth. While he was raising a glass of champagne and congratulating his team on a job well done, Rebecca Chen was probably working her first night shift, cleaning offices for minimum wage while her daughter did homework alone at home. Buddy started pacing in the back seat, ready to get out and explore his new surroundings. Robert finally opened his door and walked around to let the dog out. Buddy immediately ran to the nearest tree and began sniffing around, his tail wagging as he discovered all the new smells in this unfamiliar place. Robert's house had a large fenced backyard with plenty of space for a dog to run and play. He had bought this property specifically because he thought someday he might want to get a pet, though he had never gotten around to it. Now, watching Buddy explore the yard with obvious joy, he realized what a good life he could provide for this dog. But every time Buddy looked back at him with those trusting brown eyes, Robert saw Lily's face when she had to say goodbye to her best friend. He thought about the $200 he had given her. To him, that money was nothing. He spent more than that on a single dinner at his favorite restaurant. But to a 9-year-old girl whose mother was working 2 jobs just to pay rent, it probably seemed like a fortune. The money wouldn't solve their problems, though. $200 might buy groceries for a few weeks, but it wouldn't get Rebecca Chen back into a career-level job with benefits and security. It wouldn't undo the damage that his strategic business decision had done to their family. Robert sat down on his back porch steps and watched Buddy discover a tennis ball that the previous homeowner must have left behind. The dog picked it up and brought it over to Robert, dropping it at his feet with an expectant look. "You want to play fetch?" Robert asked, picking up the ball. He threw it across the yard and Buddy ran after it with pure joy, just like Lily had described. The dog didn't bring the ball back exactly, but he ran around the yard with it in his mouth, clearly delighted with his new game. For just a moment, Robert allowed himself to smile at the dog's happiness. At least he could give Buddy a good life. At least one member of Rebecca Chen's family would benefit from this strange twist of fate. But as he watched the dog play, Robert knew that providing a nice home for Buddy wasn't nearly enough to make up for what his business decision had cost this family. Nothing could give back what they had lost. That night, Robert couldn't sleep. He lay in his king-sized bed in his master bedroom, staring at the ceiling while Buddy slept peacefully on an expensive dog bed he had quickly bought that afternoon. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lily's brave little face trying not to cry as she said goodbye to her best friend. Around midnight, he gave up trying to sleep and walked to his home office. He turned on his computer and pulled up the company's personnel files from 3 months ago. It didn't take long to find Rebecca Chen's complete employment record. The details made his stomach churn. Rebecca had started working at Harrison Industries right after college, beginning as a junior accountant and slowly working her way up. Her performance reviews were outstanding year after year. Her supervisor had written comments like, "Goes above and beyond, extremely reliable, and one of our most dedicated employees." She had requested only minimal time off in 6 years, and most of that was for school events or when Lily was sick. She had worked through several holiday seasons, staying late to help with year-end reports. She had even come in during a blizzard when half the staff couldn't make it to the office. Robert found a note in her file from 2 years ago. Rebecca had been offered a promotion to senior accountant, but she had turned it down because the new position would have required occasional travel, and she didn't want to be away from her daughter overnight. The more he read, the worse he felt. Rebecca Chen wasn't just a good employee. She was exactly the kind of person any company would be lucky to have. She was loyal, hardworking, and responsible. And he had thrown all of that away to improve quarterly numbers that most of the shareholders would forget about in 6 months. He found her original job application from 6 years ago. Under goals, she had written, "To build a stable career that allows me to provide security for my daughter and set a good example of what hard work can accomplish." Robert pushed back from his desk and walked to the window. His neighborhood was quiet and dark, with expensive houses sitting behind perfectly maintained lawns. Streetlights illuminated luxury cars parked in driveways. Everyone here lived comfortable lives, protected from the kind of sudden financial disaster that had hit Rebecca and Lily. Meanwhile, across town, Rebecca was probably just getting home from her night shift, exhausted from cleaning offices for 8 hours. She would quietly slip into their small apartment, trying not to wake Lily, and maybe catch a few hours of sleep before heading to her daytime job at the daycare center. Robert wondered if Rebecca even knew who had signed the papers that ended her career. Probably not. Layoffs at big companies were usually handled by human resources. The people who lost their jobs rarely met the executives who made the decisions that changed their lives forever. Across the city, Lily was indeed trying to sleep in the small apartment she now shared with her mother. But every few minutes she would roll over and look at the empty spot where Buddy's dog bed used to be. The apartment felt too quiet without the sound of his gentle breathing and the occasional sleepy sighs he made during his dreams. She had tried to act happy when she got home that afternoon, showing her mother the $200 and explaining how nice Robert had seemed. She told her mom all about how Buddy had liked his new owner right away and how Robert had promised to take good care of him. "He had kind eyes, Mom," Lily had said, "and he has a big house with a yard where Buddy can run around. I think Buddy is going to be really happy there." Rebecca had hugged her daughter tightly, fighting back her own tears. She was proud of how brave Lily had been, but she also knew how much this was hurting her. Buddy had been Lily's constant companion since she was 7 years old. He had been there through her parents' divorce, through the move to a new school, and through all the uncertainty of the past few months. "You did the right thing, sweetheart," Rebecca had whispered. "I know it was hard, But you made sure Buddy will have a good life. That's what people do when they really love someone. But now, lying in the darkness, Lily couldn't stop thinking about her furry best friend. Was he scared in his new home? Did he miss her too? Was he wondering why she hadn't come home with him? Rebecca wasn't sleeping either. She was lying on the small couch that served as her bed, staring at the ceiling and doing math in her head for the 100th time. The $200 from Buddy's sale would help, but it wouldn't solve their bigger problems. Her night job paid minimum wage, and the daycare center could only afford to have her work part-time. Between both jobs, she was making less than half of what she had earned at Harrison Industries. And unlike her old job, neither of these positions offered health insurance or paid sick days. She had been applying for other office jobs for months, but every interview seemed to end the same way. Employers wanted to know why she had left her last position. When she explained that she had been laid off, they always asked why she specifically had been chosen. Rebecca never knew how to answer that question because she didn't know the answer herself. She had been a good employee. She had never been written up or disciplined. Her performance reviews had always been positive. But somehow, when the company needed to cut costs, her name had ended up on the list. Rebecca had started to wonder if there was something wrong with her, some flaw that made her expendable. The rejection letters from potential employers always used polite language about finding someone whose experience better matches our current needs. But the message was clear. Nobody wanted to hire her. The daycare center where she worked had offered to give her more hours, but that would mean working 7 days a week with no time off. She was already exhausted from working nights and days. She barely saw Lily except for a few hours in the evening. And even then, she was often too tired to do much more than help with homework and make dinner. Rebecca thought about her college friends who had chosen different paths. Some had married partners with good jobs, giving them financial security even if their own careers hit rough patches. Others had focused on building careers in fields that were more stable than accounting. But Rebecca had always believed that if she worked hard and did her job well, she would be rewarded with security and advancement. She had thought that loyalty to her employer would be returned in kind. The layoff had shattered those beliefs, leaving her feeling foolish for having trusted in a system that had ultimately failed her. Back at his house, Robert was still awake, now researching what happened to employees after layoffs. The statistics were depressing. Many people who lost professional jobs ended up taking multiple part-time positions that paid much less and offered no benefits. Some never returned to their original career level. He found studies showing that sudden job loss was one of the most stressful experiences a person could face, ranking right up there with divorce or the death of a family member. Children were especially affected, often developing anxiety and depression when their family's financial security disappeared. Robert looked at Buddy, who was sleeping peacefully in his expensive dog bed, completely unaware of the human drama surrounding his change of homes. At least the dog was safe and comfortable. But what about the little girl who had loved him enough to give him up? What about the mother who was working 2 jobs and still couldn't make ends meet? For the first time in his successful career, Robert Harrison understood that every business decision had a human cost, and this time he had seen that cost up close. The next morning, Robert woke up with his mind made up. He had spent half the night thinking, and he knew what he had to do. It wouldn't undo the pain his decision had caused, but it was a start. Buddy was already awake, sitting by the back door and wagging his tail hopefully. Robert let him out into the yard and watched him run around. But even the dog's joy couldn't lift the heavy feeling in his chest. After feeding Buddy breakfast, Robert drove to his office earlier than usual. The building looked different to him now. Instead of seeing a symbol of his success, he saw a place where hundreds of families depended on the decisions he made. Decisions that he had been making from behind a desk, looking at numbers instead of thinking about people. His assistant was surprised to see him so early. "Mr. Harrison, you don't have any meetings scheduled until 10 o'clock. I need you to pull Rebecca Chen's employment file," he said. "And I want you to find her current contact information." "Rebecca Chen?" His assistant looked confused. "I don't think anyone by that name works here currently. She used to work here. She was laid off 3 months ago from the accounting department. I need to reach her today." It took his assistant an hour to track down Rebecca's current phone number and address. Robert stared at the information for a long time before picking up his phone. "Hello, is this Rebecca Chen?" he asked when a tired voice answered. Yes, this is Rebecca. Who is this? My name is Robert Harrison. I'm the CEO of Harrison Industries. I know this might sound strange, but I need to talk to you about something important. Would it be possible for me to meet with you today? There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. I'm sorry, did you say you're the CEO of Harrison Industries? Yes, ma'am. I know this is unusual, but I promise you it's important, and I promise you're not in any kind of trouble. Rebecca's voice was careful and confused. I'm working at a daycare center until 3 o'clock today. After that, I have to get ready for my night job. Could I meet you somewhere after you finish at the daycare? Maybe a coffee shop near where you work? I'll only need a few minutes of your time. Robert could hear Rebecca breathing on the other end of the line, probably trying to figure out what this could possibly be about. There's a diner called Pete's Place about 2 blocks from the daycare center. I could meet you there at 3:30. Perfect. I'll be there. And Mrs. Chen, please bring your daughter if possible. I'd like to meet her too. When Rebecca hung up the phone, she stood in the daycare center's break room feeling completely bewildered. Why would the CEO of her former company want to meet with her? And why did he want to meet Lily too? She called her neighbor, who sometimes watched Lily after school, and asked if she could bring Lily to the diner instead of going straight home. She didn't explain why because she didn't know how to explain something she didn't understand herself. At 3:30 sharp, Robert walked into Pete's Place carrying a folder and looking around nervously. He spotted Rebecca and Lily sitting in a booth near the window and walked over to them. Mrs. Chen, I'm Robert Harrison. Rebecca stood up and shook his hand politely, but her expression was guarded. Lily looked up at him with curious eyes, not recognizing him at first. Please sit down, Robert said. I have something I need to tell both of you. As he sat across from them, Lily suddenly gasped. You're the man who bought Buddy. You're Robert. That's right, Lily. I'm the man who bought your dog yesterday. He turned to Rebecca. Mrs. Chen, I need to tell you something that might be hard to hear. Yesterday, when I met your daughter outside the grocery store, I had no idea who she was. But when she told me your name and where you used to work, I realized something terrible. Rebecca's face grew pale. What do you mean? Robert took a deep breath. I'm the person who signed the papers that ended your job at Harrison Industries. When we had to make layoffs 3 months ago, your name was on the list that came to my desk and I approved your termination. The silence at the table was deafening. Rebecca stared at him, trying to process what he had just said. Lily looked back and forth between the two adults, sensing that something very serious was happening but not understanding what. You fired my mom? Lily asked quietly. Yes, Robert said, his voice heavy with regret. I made a business decision that destroyed your family's life. And I didn't even think about the real people who would be hurt by it. I just looked at numbers on a spreadsheet. Rebecca found her voice. Why are you telling me this? What do you want? Robert opened his folder and pulled out some papers. I want to offer you a job. Not just any job, but a position as senior financial analyst at Harrison Industries. It pays 30% more than your old position, and it comes with full benefits, including health insurance and retirement contributions. Rebecca's eyes widened. I don't understand. Why would you want to hire me back? Because I spent all night reading your employment file, Robert said. You were one of the best employees we ever had. Letting you go was one of the stupidest decisions I've ever made, and I've spent the last 24 hours trying to figure out how to fix it. He turned to Lily. And there's something else. I've been taking care of Buddy since yesterday, but I think he misses you. Would you like to have him back? Lily's face lit up like a Christmas tree. Really? I can have Buddy back? If your mother agrees to take the job, then yes. Part of your compensation package includes a housing allowance that will help you afford a place where pets are allowed. Rebecca was shaking her head slowly. This is too much. I don't understand why you're doing this. Robert leaned forward. Mrs. Chen, yesterday I met a 9-year-old girl who was so brave and mature that she was willing to give up the thing she loved most in the world to help her family. That little girl taught me something about responsibility that I should have learned a long time ago. He looked at Lily, who was practically bouncing in her seat with excitement about getting Buddy back. Every decision I make affects real people, with real families and real problems. I can't undo the mistake I made 3 months ago, but I can try to make it right. And I can promise you that I'll never again approve a layoff without thinking about the families behind the names on those lists. Rebecca was quiet for a long moment, looking at the job offer papers in front of her. What if this doesn't work out? What if you decide to let me go again? Then you'll have a stronger resume, better experience, and a good reference, Robert said. But I don't think that's going to happen. I need good people, and you're exactly the kind of employee any company would be lucky to have. Lily tugged on her mother's sleeve. Mom, does this mean we can keep Buddy forever? Rebecca looked at her daughter's hopeful face, then at Robert's sincere expression. Slowly, she reached out and picked up the pen Robert had placed on the table. When do I start? She asked. An hour later, they were all standing in Robert's backyard, watching Lily roll around on the grass with Buddy, who seemed absolutely delighted to be reunited with his favorite person in the world. Thank you, Rebecca said quietly, standing next to Robert as they watched Lily and Buddy play. No, Robert replied. Thank you. Your daughter reminded me what kind of person I want to be. As Buddy ran circles around Lily, his tail wagging with pure joy, Robert realized that sometimes the best business decisions had nothing to do with profit margins or quarterly reports. Sometimes they were simply about doing the right thing for the right reasons. The little girl who had whispered, "Please buy our puppy," had taught him the most valuable lesson of his career. That behind every number on a spreadsheet was a real person with dreams, hopes, and a family who loved them.